platform or other conflicts today so that we'll have that on file. All right, moving right along. Suzanne.
So one of the NEFIC mottos is learning is messy. And as we go through today, I think you'll see there are some challenges with online learning. We have faced some challenges. We had set up all of our platform in a certain I guess, carrier, and then we've changed to Microsoft Teams. So some of you have probably never been on Teams before. So as we go, we're expecting to have mistakes, and that's how we learn, and that's how we grow, and that's how our brains get better. So just like you with your students, we're asking the same thing of you, to be open and willing to make some mistakes, and just kind of put yourself out there as we go through today.
And it's been really fun. I don't know how many of you have had this experience, but we know that grace, that's been kind of my word for the last 2 months, both for myself and for others. But it's kind of been entertaining to watch the news anchors maneuver from their homes. And so we know that anything can happen today. Those of you that have been with us before know that this is something that we say every time, because learning is indeed messy.
So today, as we go through, our objective is going to be to share ideas on how students can collaboratively work together, both in the world of online learning and when we think of going back to school. We've spent a lot of time working on how students can collaborate, but there's going to be a new challenge if students are not able to sit very closely together. And how will that look even in your classroom? So I want you to kind of put a different hat on today. We've got people that are maybe teachers, paras. We may have parents on this call. So I want you to think about, from your frame of reference and the work that you do with children, how can you take pieces of today away? We know some of you have Canvas and some of you have Google Classroom. Think about your platform and what that looks like in your platform and how you might tweak this. And we're going to talk about that at the end, because we really want to hear some of those real boots on the ground ideas and ways that you are meeting the needs of students. One of the most important things for us to do as we go into this next year is thinking about how not only are we working with students and engaging students, but how are we meeting their needs educationally? I read a really good article yesterday by Zaretta Hammond, and she talked about our job as educators is to impart knowledge to kids, and that's how we fill the equity gap. And so in order to do that, we have to be meeting their needs every day in education, not just kind of doing this surface thing. And I don't know where you were in the learning last year and this thing that we were all shocked with, but kind of twisting that into, how would I teach phonics on an online platform? How would I teach collaboration, whether it's online or in my classroom, if students are not allowed to be within 3 or 4 or 5, 6 feet of each other? What would that look like? And so I'm going to challenge you today to kind of put on that hat of, how can I best meet the needs educationally of students and do what they need in this new world. And so as we've gone through the last few weeks, we've really done 1,000 webinars. If I've done one, I've done 1,000, and tried to take away some really powerful strengths and embed those in strategies we were already using. So I'm going to challenge you today, put that hat on. You're going to have the teacher hat and the student hat on as we go through today.
So Suzanne, if I can jump in for just a second,
Sure.
One logistical thing that we would like to say on the invite that went out to you this morning, that included the link to this Teams meeting, and you also had a link to a Google folder. And you do have editing rights to all of the materials in there, because we're going to have you do some things interactively today, but we're going to ask that you don't make changes until you have saved this, made a copy and saved it to your own drive. We did have to leave it open just for the purposes of our session today. So if you would be kind enough, when this is over, to make a copy, save it to your own drive, we would greatly appreciate it.
So this is actually where I would start with my kids. We would skip all the first beginning slides with our intros and things. So when we're thinking about the teacher hat versus the student hat, right now I want you to put on that teacher hat. And if I'm going to go into a lesson with kids, we're going to introduce it and start from this point. Rhonda, would you click forward? Thank you. All right, so the first thing, as always, we're going to ground our work in standards. So we chose a standard today that would play well over kindergarten first and second, and we've set this model up for a first grade classroom. So we wanted to do something a little different. We feel like kindergarten and first are really tightly connected, where sometimes second may move on into the third grade realm, but second also has some learning to read pieces. So we've included both kindergarten first and second today, but this is going to be based on a first grade text. So just kind of keeping in mind, our goal today as we go forward is identifying the main topic and retell key details in a text. So the next thing I want to talk about is success criteria. And I don't know if many of you have seen success criteria, but that is just breaking down the standard to where children have a roadmap. And my favorite analogy of this is the first thing we do when we get in our car. If we're going to an unfamiliar place, we immediately put into Google Maps our address and we look at it. And the first thing I do is I kind of make it bigger and I look at the map to see, does that make sense to me? Interestingly, Rhonda, when she looks at puts it in, she goes to the step-by-step guide and actually follows this step-by-step guide. So I think either way you go about that, it's really important for kids to know where they're going. And that's a big part of them having ownership and driving their own learning. So what we did today is we took the standard and we said, if we were scaffolding this for kids, what would this look like? So the first piece would be, can they retell key details? At this point, we're not really worried about identifying anything. We're just asking, can they retell some key details from the text? The next one would be, can they identify the main topic based on that? And then the final one, which is the standard, is identifying the main topic and retell key details. So as we go into today, I know this is simplistic for adults, but I want you to put on your teacher hat if you are dealing with first graders and you ask them which one they would level themselves. They would have to be able to tell why. So setting up that premise of this is our goal for this week, and I want to see where you are at the end of each day. And you need to be able to think through and kind of practice where you are. So that's our goal as we go forward today.
Suzanne, there's a really great comment in the chat box that I just want to stop and make note of. Lewis has captured that, you know, often we don't really think about the skills that kids have. And he made note in the chat box that they have these hidden collaboration skills because they're used to doing this kind of thing in team-based video games that require them to work with teams. So we don't want to underestimate their skills. So thank you, Lewis, for calling our attention to that. That's a great example that I had not really thought about, but you're absolutely right. My nieces and nephews are playing games all the time. So that's great. So we want to make sure we give them those opportunities in virtual learning as well.
I love it, Lewis. Thanks for sharing. And please feel free as we go through today. This is about us collaborating as much as it is about us giving you ideas. Again, you guys are the boots on the ground, and we know that you bring so much to this and you've experienced so much in the last 3 months. How can we go into next year more prepared to teach at a deeper level using these strategies that everyone's learned and gained? So the next thing I would do in a real world setting is I would talk about geography. We're going to talk about the rainforest today. And in this map, there are 5 of 7 continents. And can you tell me in the chat where you think the rainforest falls? What continent is it that you see that rainforest falls? And if you know some things about rainforest, I want you to put what you feel like you know or why those rainforests might fall in that area. So go ahead, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to answer in chat, and this is really, I want you to do this as pretend students. So this is that student hat. So go ahead and give me some information in chat about what continents you notice that these rainforests are in and why you think that might be true. I don't see any comments yet. Come on, guys, help me out. Pretend you're a first grade student. What continents do you see that rainforests are in?
And remember to get to the chat box. If you'll just hover over your screen, you'll see a little quotation bubble. Click on that and you should be able to type in the bottom. I realize that Microsoft Teams may be new to some of you.
Awesome, there we go. Oh, we have some below the equator, Africa and Australia. Awesome. Now my chat box is so full I can't see what the answers are. Awesome job. So we've got some rainforest in Africa, Asia, Australia. Anybody see South America? Oh, there we go, in South America. Awesome. So, and someone said below the equator. So maybe something we've already talked about in our classroom is where the equator line is on a globe. And so, and what that means to our world. So thank you guys for playing along. And we're going to ask you to be involved as we go today, just like we would our students. So because those continents are around the equator, awesome job. Rhonda?
So we've said a couple of times, we're going to ask you to wear your teacher hat and your student hat. And as a teacher, you wear many hats anyway. And I know we have some district folks who wear a lot of different hats. So you should be used to that. We have put some examples in this slide presentation that we may or may not go through all of the features of. I know all of you are probably very familiar, being a K-2 teacher, with Jan Brett. I absolutely love her books because the illustrations are so vivid and full of detail. So we wanted to give you some ideas if you were going to present this lesson virtually to your students, that perhaps you might send the video ahead of time through Google Classroom or whatever platform you might be using, and have the students listen to this book called The Umbrella by Jan Brett. Maybe even suggest that they listen to it with their parents and have a discussion about it, kind of like your lesson hook. Because Suzanne and I were talking yesterday, you know, we think about our rural communities that we were all a part of. And when we say rainforest, I mean, our kids may tap into that word forest and they may think, you know, woods like we see in Lake Butler, like where I'm from. And so they need a little bit of activation of some background knowledge, some building of that knowledge. And so one way that you might do this is with a picture book of some sort. We're not going to take the time to watch the video today, but again, you have that if you would like to use this lesson later. Another idea that we have found that we absolutely love. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that I have a lot of teacher friends that have been playing around with these Bitmoji types of presentations and building the cutest little classrooms with all their students with all the Bitmojis. But I'm also hearing that it takes an incredible amount of time. But as teachers, we are the best at stealing things. So Suzanne found this virtual field trip that actually takes them to the Amazon River and through the rainforest. And so a teacher created this. I'm just going to flip through it very quickly and just call your attention to some of the features. But again, this might be a great activator type of activity for our rural students that don't have any knowledge at all about the rainforest. So it's interactive, and so it has places for you to click. Suzanne has already shared a map and asked you to think about where the rainforests are located. This is one of the Amazon River. There's also a link here. I'm not going to do this because I did it yesterday and my computer froze. But there is actually a view from Google Earth that you can click on right here at the bottom in blue. And so the kids can kind of get an idea of exactly where the Amazon River is located. There are videos embedded in this virtual field trip. Again, we're not going to take the time to watch those today, but this actual video talks about the importance of the river, the Amazon River, and the rainforest. And so these are short clips. I think they're anywhere from just a few minutes to maybe about 10 minutes long. But again, this would be something that you could send ahead of time to build that background knowledge. So this Bitmoji of the teacher, she's just taking them through this field trip and how the rainforests are considered the lungs of our planet. Here's another video that captures one of the rainforest creatures, the rain frog there. And then taking them down the river. It has places where they click on the boat or click on the teacher. So here's a little video of the Amazon River where they can enjoy the ride. I hope you're loving this as much as me. I was so excited when we found this, and I don't want to create it because I can see this teacher took a lot of time, but this would be so fun for students. And so now we're just going to look at some of the interesting facts. Again, here's another video. Here's a chart with some graphs and data that you could share and have some conversations with the students about the interesting facts about the rainforest, why the rainforest is important. That's a big portion of this. And then this very last slide, I missed this the first time I clicked through it, and I realized yesterday that all of these listings up here are actually linked. And so when you click on them, for example, the blue poison dart frog, you find more research. And so you could have the kids select one of the rainforest creatures that they would like to learn more about, and they could actually do a little more research on them. So this virtual field trip is just another idea that we thought that might be like a pre-activity before you jump into the lesson.
So Rhonda, before we move on, I did want to say that came from a Facebook page called Bitmoji Craze for Educators, and it's probably the most remarkable place I've ever been because teachers just give their stuff away. So she created this and posted it, and it just happened to be rainforest, which we had already chosen an article to do. But there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of things out there that teachers have created, and they're just out there in this website. So if you're on Facebook and you wanted to join Bitmoji, I don't know why I can't say that, Bitmoji Craze for Educators is the name of it. So, and if you can't find it, send me a text and I'll, or send me an email and I'll make sure to invite you on Facebook, because it really has some neat things if you're interested, without you having to do all the work.
Exactly. Thank you, Suzanne. And I mean, you know, we steal ideas all the time. One of the things that I've really enjoyed during this quarantine time with teachers is just seeing some of the creative ways that they've tried to loop in their students. So that's just one of many ways, and we're going to give you a chance to share at the end. So maybe jot down some of the things that you've done that you would like to share for the good of the group. So our next portion, this is called the significant sentence. Now, some of you may have joined us for other trainings throughout the last couple of years. This is one of the strategies that we really like to incorporate at all grade levels and all subjects. So you may have seen this before, but we always like to bring things back in front of you. For some of you, this may be new. So in a little bit, we're going to read an entire article about the rainforest, of course, because that's our theme for today. But Suzanne and I pulled out a sentence that we really wanted to start with today, and we have deemed it as significant. So because you are K through 2 teachers, we're going to try to tie in as many areas of reading as we can into this lesson today. So we're going to start out with a fluency portion of the lesson. So I am going to read this sentence aloud to you. So what I would like for you to do is just follow along on your screen and look at the words as I say them and pay very, very close attention. Rainforests are warm, wet places. Many trees and plants grow there. Many animals live there. All right, so to build fluency, we know that we have to read something multiple times. And so this time, what I'm going to ask that you do, I don't want you to turn on your microphones yet. We're just going to do a lip sync kind of battle. So as I'm reading here in my office and you're hearing my voice, I want you to just lip sync along with me as we read this significant sentence for the second time. Rainforests are warm, wet places. Many trees and plants grow there. Many animals live there. All right, now this is probably going to be fun because last time we tried this, it got kind of crazy, but that's okay. We're all about crazy and learning's messy. So I'm going to ask that you turn on your mic. Go ahead and just click on the microphone as you hover over and turn on your mic. And this time we are going to read this all together. And we know that I've already had some messages this morning about Wi-Fi, and I've had some of those issues myself when I was working from home. So we know there may be a little bit of a delay and we may not all be reading together at the same time, but it's okay. We're just going to have fun with this. So for our third time, we're going to read all together. So I'm going to count to 3 and then we'll begin. 1, 2, 3.
Rainforests are warm,
Rainforests are warm,
many
wet
trees
places.
grow there.
Many trees and plants grow there. Many animals live there.
All right. Thank you for playing along. You can go ahead and turn your mics back off so that we're not hearing a lot of background. But one thing you should start with your significant sentence, and it's not always a sentence. Sometimes it may be a stanza from a poem. Sometimes it might be several sentences together, or maybe even a paragraph that you really want to call attention to. But since we are talking with K through 2 teachers today, we chose just to choose a couple of sentences that we could work with. But you always want to start with some sort of fluency building so that it puts the kids on the same page. They're all hearing it, they get to practice it, and then they get to read it together. Now, what I would like for you to do as a teacher, you're going to put on your teacher brain now, or put on your teacher cap with your teacher brain in it. But what I would like for you to do in the chat box, I want you to think about this sentence and what teaching opportunities you notice through the lens of maybe a first grade teacher. What would be the things that you would teach in this sentence? It can be language types of topics. It can be reading, unlimited there. Go ahead in the chat box and give us some ideas.
Phonics, AR, I see.
That's a good one.
Sentence starts with a capital and ends with a period. That's a big one, right? Especially for first grade. Plural S in rainforests and places. I love it. There's 2 of them. That's anytime you have 2 of something, that all is a powerful tool. Definitely phonics, pausing after each sentence. Carrie Greenan said spacing. Hi, Carrie. Locating words that you know, good. So you could use it for sight words, nouns, adjectives, verbs. Homophones, good. Where do you live? Oh, that's a good one. So it's talking about where trees live and where animals live. So the natural connection is where you live. That it's nonfiction. So we've already had a fiction book in the umbrella at the beginning of our lesson today, kind of that hook, bringing them in. So now maybe we're transitioning. We've got some small words, big words. Word families, nice.
All right, you gave a lot of the ideas that we brainstormed. So I don't even really think I need to talk about those, except that I do want to make reference to phonics, because we all know that phonics for our foundational grades, when they are learning to read, and that was the title of our session today, that it's really important to build those phonics skills in our students. And many of you may have systematic phonics programs that you use. But through a significant sentence, there are opportunities to teach phonics as well. So within this sentence, you have like an R-controlled vowel there. You have another R-controlled vowel. You have a blend with the PL. You have another blend there. TR you have there, which you also have the TH, which, you know, that's two phonemes together to make a digraph. So we just wanted to point out that you have some opportunities here to maybe pull out some things that you have taught or you know that will be upcoming in your phonics curriculum. So next, we want to share a strategy that we absolutely love. And again, some of you may have seen this before, but it's okay. It's something that we like to have fun with here. Suzanne and I had a great time trying to figure this out together. We spent way more time than we should have, but Suzanne's going to talk you through a strategy called ... divide.
So if you were in our sessions last summer, you saw this. And honestly, I have shared it everywhere I have been, whether it was a middle school, a high school. I think it's a powerful tool for kids that they can do right in their text. And so sometimes we see things and they're fabulous and they're in the summer, and I'm really guilty of this. So when I say we, I'm talking to myself, but I have been guilty myself of going to a workshop and saying like, oh my gosh, that was the most powerful professional learning I've ever seen. And the school year starts and you get busy and you just forget about it. And so we wanted to bring it back to your attention and just remind you that it's a great tool. And for those of you who haven't seen it, it's called ... divide. It does not work 100% of the time. So I can promise you that that is the case, but phonics rules typically work about 90% of the time. And this pretty much falls in that bracket. So we've done this a lot of times in professional learning with teachers. I've done it in classrooms with students, and I would say that's a pretty close estimate. So again, it is not foolproof, but what it does do is allow students who struggle another strategy to help them discover words that they were unable to pronounce previously. So a fourth grade teacher that I was working with last summer actually used it in her classroom, and her response was, they knew what the word was once they said it out loud. How many times have you had a kid raise their hand? Oh, miss, what is this word? And when you give it to them, they go, oh, I know that word. So this breaks down that limitation and allows them a little more success on their own. So the first thing you're going to do is find all the vowels and place the dots under them. Then you're going to start at the back of a multisyllabic word, and you're going to scoop to the consonant in front of the vowel. So we'll practice this so you'll see it, but you find all the vowels, and you have access to the PowerPoint, but you find all the vowels and put a dot under them. Then you start at the back of the word and you scoop to the consonant in front of the vowel. And you continue doing that. So the key thing, there are two pieces that are important to remember. Blends and digraphs are friends. So anytime you see the PL or the BR, whatever, they stay together. And if your students know what an open and closed vowel is, that is helpful. So if you don't have a significant phonics program in your school and you don't teach that through something like Saxon Phonics or something like that, it's an easy way to teach them and say, hey, when you see a vowel with no consonant behind it, it's going to say its name. That's an open vowel. If you see a vowel with a consonant behind it, that's going to say a short vowel sound. So that's when it doesn't say its name any longer. So those are two simple things you can teach in the matter of just a few minutes, and then practice, of course, with first graders, but allow them to really practice through. Rhonda, would you fast forward for the next screen, please? So we're going to start right here with animals. And of course, we know that the S does not go in the word, that is actually a suffix added on there. So we're going to just go ahead and slash that. So we're going to pretend that it's not there, but your kids may not know that. So if they don't, it does not alter this. So the next thing we're going to do is dot under each of our vowels. So the A, the I, and the A all get a dot. And then remember, we're going to start at the back. And I did this with a middle school group that is in a fishing community. And the teacher that presented it to them said, you know, we're going to make like a little fishing hook. And because she said fishing hook, every kid in the class bought in. So it was kind of fun to watch because they really were excited. So we're going to make a little fishing hook at the end of our word, and we're going to go forward and scoop in front of the vowel, the consonant in front of the vowel. So we're going to go to the A and catch the next consonant, which is an M. And then we're going to start at that M and catch the consonant in front of the I. So they need to know their vowels versus consonants. They need to know blends or friends, and they need to know open and closed vowels. So here it actually doesn't work for open and closed vowels, which is interesting. So we've got our animals. So as you break that down, I don't know how many times I have said to a fourth grader, chunk that word, honey. Just keep trying, chunk that word. And they look at me just blank because they really have no concept of how to chunk the word. So this allows them a strategy. And even if it's not perfect, it usually will get very, very close. So if you would go ahead and go to the next screen, Rhonda, we're just going to practice another one. I want you to do this one. Just write it on a piece of paper. We ask you to bring paper and pen. Or markers. So I want you just to write it on a piece of paper, the word emergent. I'm going to give you just a second to do that. Now I want you to dot under each of the vowels. So Rhonda, would you go ahead and do that? Dot under each of the vowels. And now use your fish hook, and you're going to catch the letter in the consonant in front of your vowel. So I hope you had the G that was connected to the E. And then the next one would be, remember your blends are friends. So your ER is going to stay together. And you're going to jump in the consonant in front of the E. So that's going to be your M. So remember your E is open. It does not have a consonant behind it. So it's going to say its name. So you've got emergent. Now do one last one. We don't want to prolong this, but I want you to really feel confident in using this with your students, because in every situation, like I said, even if it didn't work perfectly, the struggling kindergartner that I did this with was able to sound out the words. And the first grade student was able to sound out fourth grade words and nonsense words that had 15 letters in them and sound them out correctly. So I want you to really have this tool to share with your students. I think it's very powerful. So go ahead and dot under your vowels, do your swoop. So with this one is a little different. We wanted to share this one because it has that Y at the end that is a vowel, but it doesn't have the consonant to go in front of it. So because the OR is going to stay together as a sound, the R controlled vowel. So I want you to think about that. That's a really important piece as you break down this word. But again, I want you to put on that hat of, would this work for my kids to be able to pronounce a word that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do previously? So this was also a compound word, so that would be something you could also teach in breaking apart this word for vocabulary purposes. You've got your ST, your OR, you've got your ER. So you've got a lot of blends where R-controlled vowels, digraphs, things in here to work with that you could teach by doing this, that makes it very real and meaningful to students. Go ahead, Rhonda. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on, but I just wanted you to have this strategy and be able to kind of refresh your memory if you have used it, and think about how you could use it with your students. So as we move on, Rhonda's going to take us on into the actual meat of the lesson. So those were some of the foundational learning to read pieces that we wanted to include for the lower grades.
And I would just like to say that's an activity that I think one of our colleagues, Chris, is on the session today as well. But this can go all the way up into the upper grades of helping kids to really break down words. So this is something that you could teach parents to use. I know we have some NEFAC friends on the call that are parents of young children. So as kids are learning to read, it's just one of those strategies that we really enjoy. And you would be surprised how many multisyllabic words that a first grader is able to conquer by using something as simple as dot, dot, divide. So we hope you will embrace that and try it with students, your own kids, share it with parents.
So,
right.
Rhonda,
Yes.
before we go on, I just wanted to say really quickly, they did this in a middle school science class. I saw someone put in the chat, it's great for science words. This was a 7th grade science class that we used this strategy in, and it was a teacher. She was not confident about trying new things, and she actually said to me, I don't like trying new things. They're hard and I often blow them. And so we had practiced what she was going to say, and I was in there to support her. And the reaction she got from her kids, you could not have paid money for. They were so excited to be able to break down their science words. There was cheering in the classroom. Kids were helping other kids, making sure they knew how to do it. And 3 days later, I was back at the same school, and I was in another classroom, an ELA classroom, and the students from the first classroom said, oh my gosh, did she show you how to do this strategy? And they were so excited. So I just want to say, not only is it fabulous for first graders, but it doesn't really matter what your age bracket. And Rhonda said something that struck a chord. We have a lot of parents who can't read. And so this might be the ticket to allowing them to do more work with their students. So I think that's a neat one that I really had never made a connection with, was to share it with parents, and maybe even open up a world of learning for them. So thanks, Rhonda. Sorry.
That's fine. Thank you, Suzanne. So we want to take you back to our goals for the day. Suzanne shared the success criteria in the beginning, but we have taken some opportunities to show you some other areas that you might want to hit on. We're now going to focus on our goals for the day. So we just wanted to put these back in front of you. The rest of our lesson will be focusing on retelling the key details from a text, identifying the main topic, and identifying the main topic and retelling the key details. So they're putting it all together. And remember, this is a building process. So you may have students that are working at this point where they're okay with pulling out some details from the text, but they may not be able to combine that main topic and be able to retell. So those will be the things that we'll be focusing on in our lesson today. So we are going to start with some text-dependent questions. And you may be thinking, well, how are we supposed to answer those? We haven't even seen the text yet. Well, this is deliberate and purposeful. So when you put text-dependent questions in front of kids, sometimes, especially in this virtual world that we are living in right now, and some of the teaching strategies that we're having to do online, you always want to read the questions aloud. So I'm going to ask you right now to have on your student hat. So you are a first grade student, and your teacher has said, okay, I'm going to read some questions to you, and I want you to really pay close attention to those questions because you're going to see them again in the text and you're going to be expected to answer them. So I'm just going to read them aloud first, and I want you to follow along. Tell me what we can learn from this text. What is this text mostly about, and how do you know? Identify the key details in the text that support the main topic. Using key details from the text, describe what each animal does to survive. All right, so I want you to keep those in the back of your mind as a student sitting in my first grade class, but now I'm going to ask that you remove that teacher hat. That student hat, and now you're going to put on your teacher hat. So you probably have noticed that these questions are numbered, okay? That's twofold. We have two purposes with that, but we focus many times in trainings that we have. Some of you may have been in trainings with us where we use the Fisher and Fry research on building text-dependent question ladders. Now, this doesn't look like a ladder, but it is building. So if you notice that one, that is standing for a level 1 question. It's a recall question. It's like at the bottom level of the ladder. But as primary teachers, we know that if kids can't answer those recall questions, how in the world are we going to get them to do that critical thinking? So this is a level 1 question, pretty safe. Tell me something you can learn from the text. Most of your students would be able to do that. Question number 2 is a comprehension question. So we're moving up the level, and now you also should be connecting with that success criteria that I just shared. So I'm going to go back a second. So looking at the main topic. So this question 2 that is going up our ladder is a comprehension question. What is this text mostly about, and how do you know? So we're focusing on some of those goals that we had in mind for our lesson through this question. Level 3, we're getting a little more difficult. We want them to identify key details in the text that support the main topic. So we're asking them to analyze. So this is an analysis question. And then level 4 is knowledge utilization. This is where the students have to do something new with their thinking. So here we're asking them to put it all together. Not only are they going to pull out some key details from the text, but they're going to take it to a new level, and they're going to have to think about one of those rainforest animals and how does that animal use, what does it have to do to survive? Also, those of you that all of you teach these levels. Some of you may be district or you may be parents, but if you think about your science standards, so in your science standards, one of the science standards talks about what animals use to survive. So not only are you hitting some literacy standards, but you're also able to incorporate those science standards. All right, so I want you to keep those questions in the back of your head because you're going to use them again. All right, so now we're ready to take you into the article. Now I'm going to suggest, and many of you may have the PowerPoint pulled up on a different screen or maybe minimized. I know I'm sharing my screen, but you can't really maneuver mine back and forth. But if not, you may want to just jot down these directions on a piece of paper that you have beside you. So what I would like for you to do, you're going to read the article in just a second, but these are our directions. First of all, you're going to read it, okay? Read it in your environment, wherever you are, whether you're sitting in the classroom or at home or by the pool or wherever you may be today. You're just going to read it. You're going to write down any words that are unknown. Now, I want you to think like a student, so like a kindergarten through 2nd grade student. So I'm quite sure that you're going to know all these words as a teacher, but think through the lens of a student and write down words that may be unknown to them or unusual to them. As you are reading, I also want you to think about those questions that I just read aloud. Do you see any answers in the paragraphs? So if you find an answer to a question, you're going to write down that paragraph number where you think there might be an answer to one of those 4 questions. Then I also want you to write down any questions that you have. Again, think through the lens of a kindergarten 1st or 2nd grader, because you may not have any questions about this article with your teacher brain, but I want you to think like a student. So I'm going to pause just a second, give you a chance to write those down very quickly before we take you to the article. All right, so now on our next slide, this is the article that we are asking you to read today. So we're just going to pause for probably about 3 minutes, give you a chance to read, jot down those unknown words, jot down the number of any paragraphs where you think there might be an answer to a question, and then write down any questions that you have. So just work in whatever environment you are sitting in right now. All right, there's our timer. And Suzanne, she's texting me during our training, but she's like, I
She
hate
was
waiting.
so
And you know what? I have to set a timer because I absolutely have no sense of time whatsoever. But in the virtual world, 3 minutes seems like 10 while you're waiting because there's complete silence because we have you all muted. In the classroom, that would be a little different. But at this point in time, what I'd love for you to do, and of course, you might go into more detail, you definitely would go into more detail with your students. But what I would love for you to do at this point in time is in the chat box, share some of the words that you wrote down that would be unknown to your primary students. Go ahead and just jot those very quickly in the chat box.
Macaw, poison, enemy. Oh, that's a good one. Several macaws, poisonous poison. So you could really bring in your affixes there. I love it. Enemies, quickly, that LY, the QU, that would be great. Juice, those are all words that students are going to have trouble with. Dart, I like that Katricia brought in dart because that really, you can kind of talk about what does dart mean. It's kind of a multi-meaning word. It's the name, the dart frog, but it also could be a tool that you throw at a dart board. So I love that. I was looking to see what else. Pretty much everybody's kind of gone with the enemies, macaws. At this point, I think we've hit all of them, Rhonda.
All right. Thank you, Suzanne, for monitoring those on the chat. And so we ask you to do a couple of other things with the questions to jot down the paragraph number. You're going to have an opportunity to visit those questions in a second, so that's going to be useful for you to refer back to. And we'll have an opportunity in the end for you to share any questions that you might have. So we're going to move along, and this is where learning might get a little bit messy. So we're going to go ahead and say that in the beginning and ask that you work through this with us. Suzanne?
All right. So will you stop sharing, Rhonda?
I am going to stop sharing. Yes.
All right. So I'm going to take over sharing, but I wanted to say before I do this, if I were working with students in a classroom setting or in a real world setting, I would have a way for them to have hands on the text in kindergarten and first grade. If you're doing packets with reading, or if you're doing articles in Google Classroom, they need to be able to see it and manipulate it on their own. For teachers, we're going to go a little different route. So I'm actually going to share my screen and show you how to put yours side by side. So if you will give me just a second, do you guys see my screen now?
We do.
Okay, so I'm going to get out of this. And if you want to make your screen smaller and then open up a new Google tab, you can click and move your Google tab right over and have two side by side, so that you can access the Zoom or the Microsoft Teams, and you can work in this document both at the same time. And some of you, I think, were already doing that because I can see you moving along through the Google Slides, but I wanted you to see how to do this in case you had never experienced it before. So I'll do it one more time. So you're going to be in a screen probably like this. You're just going to minimize it. You're going to click on your plus sign, get a new tab, and then click and hold it down and drag it over. And that just separates the two so that you can actually go into the Google Drive here. And we want you to, for the next few minutes, you're going to spend some time on some slides in teamwork. So that's our goal for the next few minutes. So everyone needs to have the PowerPoint pulled up or the Google Slides pulled up. And you need to be on slide 35. So I'm going to give you just a minute. Yes.
If you are, I just want to say, if you're not comfortable with doing that, you're like, oh, that looks really cool, but I I'm just not going to be able to do that. You can toggle back and forth between two tabs. So you
We
do
can't see
whatever
your
works for
screen.
you. I've had some craziness going on this summer where I've had my cell phone propped up, my iPad propped up, my laptop. So you do whatever you have to do to make it work for you. We are perfectly fine with that.
Rhonda said, "You do you, honey." We cannot see your screen, so whatever works for you is perfect, but we wanted to give you that option. And I did want to say too, back to the slide 32 where we read that text, or where you spent some time reading it, I wanted to reiterate, because we've seen a lot in the last couple of years where teachers are doing all the reading for students. And we know that learning comes through the struggle. And so I would challenge you, depending on where your students are, to allow them to have that struggle and to experience it. Now, maybe at the beginning of first grade, you're not going to give them a passage like that, but I want you to think about what pieces of that could you give them? Could you bold the sight words that they should know, and they read the sight words and you read the other words? So I want you just to kind of put on your thinking hat and how you could get that text across to students without giving it to them. We don't want to ever just give them things that they don't need. So you know your students and you know your level. So again, you do you, right, Rhonda?
That's right.
Okay, so as we go into slide 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, I want you to look in the box and you're going to see a name. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to delete this and make it bigger so you can see it really closely. I see a lot of you are in there. So you can see at the top, there are names on each of the boxes. And for some, oh, there we go. So for instance, number 1 is on Team Jaguar is Lewis C. Number 2 is Ashlyn A. Number 3, Danielle L. Number 4, Shauna G. So I want you to find your name on the next several slides and go ahead and put your cursor in the box behind the question. So if you see here, the question is right here, and you're not going to be able to be in present mode. You'll have to be just on the screen that looks just like this, but I want you to put the cursor behind the question mark. Are you guys all ready? I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Oh, I just saw a big split of people looking for their names. If you don't see your name, would you please unmute yourself and tell us in case we've missed someone? Of course, with your students, you would know who your kids are. You would be able to, you know, if somebody wasn't online that day, you could easily switch them in and out, where we don't have that luxury because we didn't know how many of the 30 would be able to be here with us today. And we know that some have already said that they wanted to have access to the recording, but they weren't going to be able to join us. So find your name. We're going to play with this and pretend the best that we can that it's like a real life scenario. So is everyone good? How about this? If you're not good, unmute and say, "Hey, Suzanne, this is so-and-so and I need a spot."
Then where should we be looking?
Is that Carrie?
Yeah.
Do you have, do you see Carrie Green in anywhere, Rhonda?
I am looking.
Carrie, I know Mike's in there. Oh, there you are. Carrie G, you're on slide 38.
Thank you.
Number 3.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure. Anyone else? Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to show this screen again so that you have the text. And I want you to spend just a minute answering your question. So if, like Carrie Greenan was question number 3, she is only going to answer question number 3. You will all 4 be typing if there are 4 people on your screen, such as Team Jaguar. Everybody's in a box. I want you to go ahead and answer your questions based on your text. And nobody's judging, okay? Learning's messy. If you just make something up, I'm pretty good with that. But we are going to work through this process and have your friends add to your statement. So go ahead and give a statement, but it doesn't have to be elaborate. Think first grade, okay? You're right now pretending you're first graders. I'm going to give you 1 minute. And you know, I hate that silence of time or time of silence. So I'm going to set my timer because otherwise I'll stop it in like 20 seconds. Okay, you have about 10 seconds left. Go ahead and finish your answer. And here's the thing that kids love to do. If you would like to highlight your answer and change the color, you may do that. I used to use Google Classroom a lot with my first and second graders, and that was a prime thing. They loved to change the font or change the color, and sometimes you can get buy-in from a kid doing that that would never otherwise give you an answer. Let's see. Carrie, are you in the present mode? If you're in the present mode, you can't type on it. If you're not in present mode, you should be able just to click in there and type. Do you want to unmute and see if I can help you?
Sorry. How do I know if I'm in present mode?
If you look at on my screen, if I'm in present mode, it goes to where I'm showing the whole screen like this. And I can't type on it when it's presenting. But if I hit escape, then you should be able to click on that.
Let me see. I've done something wrong. I think it may have come when I was trying to open other tabs.
Did you have an option to edit at the beginning? That may have been, I don't know how it was created. I don't remember if we gave you an option to edit or not.
We did. We gave them the editing option.
All right.
If I log out completely and come back in, will it put me in the same place?
Okay, that sounds good. While she's doing that, we're going to go ahead and go to the second round. So for the second round, I want the number 1 person to click into the number 2 box, the number 2 person to click into the number 3 box, the number 3 person to click into the number 4 box, and the number 4 person to click into the number 1 box. And if you're thinking right now, oh my gosh, my first graders could never do this, you're right. The first time they can't do it. But I promise you, if you continue using this style of learning, they will get it, and they will get it much faster than you ever thought that was possible. When I first started using Google Classroom, we did a lot of research projects, and they would share slides, and we've been through the whole gamut of one child erased the entire work of the other child, and we had to recapture it. And so it was a learning experience, but it was a learning experience for them as well as for me. And within 2 weeks, they seamlessly got their Chromebooks out, logged into Google, did all the work, put them away. Like, it was amazing and like clockwork. So I'm going to challenge you, if that's your thought right now and you're going, oh my gosh, I want you to kind of go, it's not going to work the first couple of times, but it will eventually work.
And I love what's happening on some of these slides. So some of you are adding in graphics, some of you are highlighting, some of you are using a different colored text to respond to your partner. You're doing all those things naturally. And I want to go back to what Lewis said at the very beginning. Don't underestimate our kids, because they're going to be able to do some of those things too. And we want that to happen. So I love it.
I think that's such a great point. When you see what adults are doing, if you were doing this on a consistent basis with your kids, then maybe Mara is always going to be blue, and Whitney is always going to be yellow, and Alexandra is always going to be red. And then as they type on each slide, you know what group of learning they have accomplished and who wrote what. So that might become an important piece for you as the teacher to kind of assess their piece of knowledge based on the color text they're using. So you could set that up in a lot of different ways. Or you could just let them play with it and have fun. So our minute is almost up. I'll give you 10 more seconds, it looks like. So if you're finishing your sentence, go ahead and finish your sentence. Okay. Oh, look, someone's added some pictures in here. Dang, look at you. All right. Margie, like, go Margie. So we're going to do 2 more cycles of that. So I want you to go into the next text box. With kids, I would be super explicit, exactly where you want them to click. But with adults, please just go into the next text box. We're going to only spend 30 seconds this time. Only 30 seconds. And I almost set my timer for 30 minutes. But we're only going to do 30 seconds this time. I want you to read what was written and see if there's anything that you could add to that. So go ahead.
And Suzanne, there's a couple of people that are having some technology concerns, and learning is messy. We're okay with that. We know that we would have to work through this with students and parents as well. So if you just want to jot down your answers on a piece of paper, that's okay, and just kind of watch what's going on. We're totally fine with that. And we know that there's a lot of different factors that are coming into play here.
So think just like when you're working with your students, there are always going to be challenges, but did we get some good learning that happened as a result of what happened today? And so don't get hung up on the fact that it didn't work right now, or you didn't get in, or something like that. We will certainly help you solve those problems for future purposes. But those kind of things are going to happen with your students too, and put that hat on as to how you would help them solve it.
And Sarah, I see your question in the chat box. Probably what has happened on Team Sloth. One of those is Carrie, and Carrie's having some technology difficulties there. She logged off and is coming back in. And maybe the other 2 people were not able to join us today. So Sarah, if you would like to jump on another slide and give some feedback to some other teachers, that's perfectly fine with us, since you're all alone there on Team Sloth.
Again, that wouldn't happen in a classroom setting, because you would know your students and you would know who was absent for that day, and you could easily move them, just like you would if there was only one kid at a table. So kind of think of from that perspective. We don't really know you guys, and so not knowing who's where is a little different picture.
Thank you, Katricia, for being a good friend. That's what we would expect of our students, and inviting them to come along. And also, no one is with Amanda on slide 42. So Sarah, jump into either one of those.
All right, we're going to go one last round. So jump into a box and let's go. See what you can add. Oh, I saw a picture get added. Somebody's playing. I don't know, Carrie, if that could be the problem or not, but we can, after the session, let's come back to that, and I'll stay on after with you for just a few minutes and see if we can solve it. So just hang tight with us, is what I'm saying. All right, so time is up. So finish your sentence. So then we're going to go back and just do a little review. kind of an overall picture of what people have said. So I think what I want you to do, and this could be done 1,000 different ways. We could do it where we, as the teacher, are the summarizer. We could have students, maybe one student summarize what they saw on a slide and share it out. You could have one student summarize what each person had said. I think it depends on your time frame. It depends on what you see as students are typing. We were solving some problems with Carrie, but and with some other folks that couldn't get in. So if you were able to click in and read what each student was writing and go from slide to slide as they were doing it, it's just one more way for you to kind of be that the teacher facilitator versus being the teacher talker. So this would allow you to check what each person's work is looking like. And I'm going to ask, let's just have a couple share out. So I'm going to ask Team Macaw and Team Gorilla. Would you guys, I see lots of color on your slides. That's the only reason I chose you. I really am an elementary school teacher at heart. So if you would, do I have someone from Team Macaw who's willing to give us a summary of what they wrote and what they discovered? Just unmute yourself and share away. Anyone? All right.
Do you want us to just read
Sure,
what's on our
absolutely.
book?
Sure.
Okay. Read the question or just read the responses?
Just read the response.
What animals live in the rainforest and how they live there? The rainforest and animals that live there with beautiful pictures. Macaws and poisonous dart frogs live there. Spiders and monkeys live in the high trees. Macaws have sharp beaks. Dart frogs use poison juice when enemies are near. Spider monkeys swim from tree to tree.
Awesome. Which slide are you on?
37.
37. Okay, I was not with you. Sorry. All right, awesome. And I love that this person used pictures because that's one of those multi-sensory things for kids. They need to be able to see those things. So I love that they brought that in. So as we move forward, I want you to think about, as a teacher, if a kid had given you this level of work, what would you say to them? And if they were to see this group's work versus this group's work, would it inspire some thought? So if I had each group share out all the way down, would, by the time we got to whatever the last group is, I think that's Team Butterfly, or maybe Team Iguana, maybe? Where are we going here? So if we got to Team Capybara, that's the last group. Would they have this elaborate group of work, body of work, because they've been adding to as they've heard other people talk? That's the ultimate form of learning. That's not cheating. That's the ultimate form of learning, right? I have listened to what someone else said. I do that as an adult. The first thing I do when I hear somebody else is I start writing, right? So I want you to think about with your kids, if I hear what someone else is saying and I'm hearing their thoughts and reading their thoughts and seeing that, and that's being integrated into my learning, how much better am I going to walk away from this lesson with a much deeper understanding of what's happening? So the last, I wanted just to share the level 4, because I think that's a really neat one. Kids have, and for us, that's a pretty easy thing when we're reading a first grade text, to jump from these are the details in the text to how is this going to help an animal survive? And I want you to put on your first grade hat because I think this is a really fun answer. So let's just look at that one. Whoops. Sorry, my phone's ringing. Hey, I'm on a conference call.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Sorry, someone from within NEFAC called me. Nope, that never happens. So if we're looking at using key details from the text, describe what each animal does to survive. Macaws and birds use their beaks to open nuts for food. Frogs have skin with poisonous juice to keep it safe. Spider monkeys can swing from branch to branch to reach the fruits to eat. So this student has started to join the thoughts. It's not just this is what they do, it's this is what they do to survive. And so there were several things in each one that made that a possibility that they could choose. There's not a right or a wrong answer. It might be swinging from the branch for the monkeys, or it might be that they just said they eat fruits and seeds. Both things are necessary for their survival. And so it doesn't, like, as a teacher, I wouldn't really care if you gave me one or both, or if you gave me one versus the other. So I just wanted to bring that in because I think that's a really important piece that often as teachers we miss, is that combination of thought.
So Suzanne, there are a lot of comments in the chat box, just some really good points to think about with your teacher hat. And we know that many of you are using different platforms for our purposes today. And this has been a learning curve for us as well. Suzanne will show an example later. We did one lesson, it seems like months ago, but it was only a little bit ago, where we used Google, help me, Suzanne, I'm like losing. We used like an Excel sheet, and we were like, oh, then we heard this idea of using slides. We know, and somebody commented on this, making sure they understand the directions and knowing where to type. In your environment, this might look totally different. If you're in Google Classroom, they may have, you know, something there that identifies them which slide to go to as a totally separate section. So you can make this work for your kids, and that's what we want to happen. But lots of good suggestions in the chat box. So be sure that you kind of scroll through that as participants as well.
Well, and while you mentioned it, I'll go ahead and show real quickly. For a middle school lesson, we actually had an Excel or a Google Sheets list.
Sheets.
Thank you. I had the worst time.
I couldn't retrieve it.
Between PowerPoint and Google. And so here we put the group names on the front, and then we had a slide here with the questions, and it has the poem on the slide. And so they just came in and they were either A1, A2, A3, or A4. And for that purpose, we actually had their names for each group at the top of the slide so they could easily see what number they were. So this is just another idea depending on your platform. Some of you are using Google. I've done Google Classroom and had them go in just like you would in a college classroom. And honestly, my first grade students loved it. They had to use a complete sentence. It had to have a capital letter and punctuation. And they would go in and respond in Google Classroom, and then they had to respond to 2 people. So just like you would in a college class where you're writing your answer and then you're responding to 2 others. And so depending on your classroom, you could do this a myriad of ways. We also had here where they would have kind of an online journal. So each kid could go into an online journal and summarize at the end of the lesson. So all of that was built into this form. So like we're asking you to do and stretch yourself, we're also stretching ourselves. And this was a new experience for us as well. So that's why our caveat is learning is messy, because we believe that's when we learn the most. So we want you to be able to experience that too.
And Rhonda, I love the reference. Rhonda is an ESE teacher, and if you're looking at the chat box, she talks about the opportunities to have first graders draw a lot, which you're going to have an opportunity to do that in just a second.
You
So
took the words right out of our mouth.
And Margie, please share anything. Margie is talking about that Google Slides lets you type in instructions, and she's going to send out an example. So yes, please do that. And online journaling, those are some of the ideas that are coming up in the chat. So thank you. And we're going to have a chance, hopefully at the end, for more of you to share.
This is my favorite part, is when you guys get excited about things you're doing and you're so willing to share. That's my favorite part about what we get to do. So thanks for being awesome.
All right, Suzanne, do you want to stop sharing and let me
Oh.
share, or?
Maybe.
Okay. That's so sweet of you.
Okay, I think I've stopped.
All right, are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So we want to do, just like we would do with our students, we want to do a little pulling everything together. So we're going to summarize, but I want to call you back to our criteria that we've shown you several times already. And I want you to do a self-check, okay? Now, with your students, you might have them do a thumbs up or a smiley face or something in the chat box. I'm just going to let you check yourself privately. But with our students, we would want to know where they are. So I want you to think about, and just pretend you're a first grade student, because I know that as a teacher, you have all these skills. But where are you? Do you think you're feeling pretty good about retelling key details? How are you on identifying the main topic? And then are you able to pull that all together, identifying the main topic and retelling the key details of the text? So I want you to think about where you are as a first grade student, the questions. Hopefully you're making that connection, that the questions drew you to those goals that we had in mind for you today as you were going back to the text and answering those text-dependent questions. So with kids, we would want to identify, where are you? Do you need help? And remember that the proof is in the text, because these are text dependent. Now, what I want you to do now, here's your chance. I think it was Rhonda that made this suggestion about drawing. So here's your chance. You're probably wondering, why in the world did they ask me to have paper and markers and colored pencils and crayons nearby? Well, this is why. We want you very quickly, we're only going to give you a short amount of time, so it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. But what we would like for you to do on your paper with your writing utensils, go ahead and draw a picture that shows two key details from the text and includes the main idea. Two details and the main idea. So I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. So that's going to be a real quick drawing. Go ahead and get started. And we are going to ask some of you to volunteer to share. So remember, learning is messy. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. All right, 2 minutes, go. there's our timer. We know we didn't give you a lot of time, but that's okay. You get the idea. So what we want to do next is we want to give, and we'll take volunteers. There's no pressure here, but we would love for some of you to share your drawing. And as someone else is sharing and pointing out their two details and a focus that includes the main idea, I want the rest of you to be thinking in your head, okay, do you agree or do you disagree with your colleague's drawing showing those two key details and the main idea? And then also I want you thinking as a teacher, what are some other ways that you might have them share their work? So do any of you, would any of you volunteer to actually turn on your camera and share with us? No judgment, I promise. That's a rule here, no judgment. Okay, Lewis, thank you so much. Go ahead and turn on your camera and your microphone and tell us about your picture.
Let's see if I can get it so you can see it.
It's trying to focus.
Trying to focus on it.
Yeah, your camera is not really wanting to focus, but why don't you just tell us about it?
All right, well, I've got a picture of a poison dart frog with a skull and crossbones pointing at it to let them know that it's poisonous. And some trees and some rainforest and some rain falling and a spider monkey up in the tree. And I was just fixing to draw him a call when you called time. So my main idea was that there are lots of animals that live and lots of things that live in the rainforest. And my details were that the poison dart frog has poison to protect itself, and that the spider monkeys live up in the trees. And I was going to have a macaw eating a nut, but I ran out of time.
Okay, and if you don't mind, Lewis, hold it up again, because someone told me on the chat that they could see it, and maybe it was because I had that little tiny window, because I'm trying to do multiple things.
Oh, you know what? I know what's wrong. Hold on, I've got blur on. I remember how to turn it off.
Oh, you've got your background blurred. See, those are the kind of things that we have to work through. So absolutely, learning is messy. But
Don't
thank you
blur.
so much for sharing. Okay, here we go.
That worked better.
That's a little better. I don't know if anyone else can see it, but someone sent a message in the box that they could. So would anybody else be willing to share? Thank you, Lewis. Anyone else? All right, Rhonda, go ahead. Here she is.
I don't know if y'all can see.
We can.
Can you see
I
it?
can see that one much better. Yeah, I can see that one much better. Yeah.
Okay, it's with my notes up here, so just ignore some of the notes. But I put animals of the rainforest, and I drew brightly colored, tried to draw one anyway, a macaw, monkey eating some fruit. That was a detail. And a frog. There's my frog.
All right, and I love what happens with teachers because you naturally go back to the standard. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone. I'm like hearing myself like 10 times. So I'm going to go ahead and mute you because I think that's why. Okay.
Rhonda,
Yes.
Rhonda, if you'll quit sharing your slides, I think they can see the pictures much better.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because the boxes will be bigger.
All right, perfect. So what I was about to say, and I'll take one more volunteer, but I love that when you share, because of that teacher hat that you wear, and we're always in that teaching mode, you naturally went back to the standard and the success criteria, and you naturally pointed out your supporting details and leading to your main idea. But when we think about our students, they're going to be more about sharing their drawing. And so this opportunity of a partner check, is there anyone else that would volunteer to share? I'll take one more. Okay, okay. That's okay. All right, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And Suzanne, if you'll let me know if you're seeing it again.
I see it.
All right, perfect. So let's take a second, and because you did this naturally, but thinking with your teacher hat and thinking about those little ones that sit in front of you, what's another way that if we are practicing social distancing within a classroom, or if we are teaching within an online format, what are some ways that you can think of that you would have students check each other's work? And again, we're going back to this self-check, and we're having them look for these to see where they fall on this chart. They're partner checking here. We had you self-check, then we had you do a partner check. So you can either type it in the chat box, or you can turn your microphone on and share with us. What are some other ways that you can think of that you would have them check each other's work? Okay, I see the idea of a rubric. Amanda, tell us a little bit more about Seesaw for those that may not be familiar with that. If you wouldn't mind turning on your mic and just sharing with us.
It's, I guess, just like an online resource. You can drop in all kinds of like resources and assignments for students, and that for me was my saving grace through this whole entire thing, because you can actually write and draw on other students' work, so they can share their work, and students and teachers can go on there and actually provide more information, like highlighting or little notes and things like that. It's an awesome program, and I think just the basic stuff is kind of free, so anybody can use them.
Thank you for sharing. That sounds a lot like Edgy that we use, and in fact there's one of the Tech Tuesdays about that, but that sounds like it's a friendlier version for the lower grades. So thank you for jumping in and sharing.
It was amazing because the upper grades in our county was using Schoology, and Schoology, in my opinion, doesn't work a lot for the lower grades. So Seesaw was super helpful, along with, of course, a lot of other resources, but that was one that I really enjoyed.
Okay, perfect. And I see in the chat box that many of you have used Seesaw, so that's great. Some other ideas there, having them take a picture and share with a partner. The rubric, I think I mentioned that, comparing, what do you like about their summary? So some great ideas that you're sharing as well. So thank you for jumping in on that. All right, so I'm just going to bring you back. And again, I just mentioned the partner check. You're having them look through and kind of see where their performance falls on these goals that we had set aside for today. So Suzanne, you're probably going to need to screen share again. So I will stop sharing because we want to show you some actual first grade examples of how you might do some different things in the classroom. So Suzanne, I'm going to stop sharing and let you take over.
So we just had a couple of, I got with a partner teacher that I had partnered with a long time ago, and asked for some samples because I didn't have any of my samples any longer. And these were a couple of things that she had first grade students do. They worked in a Google Slides all together, and you can see they pretty much did, it looks like each child did a different slide. So that would be one way to make that happen. And the reason I can tell is because you have different styles of each one. So you can see this one, it was all kind of uniform. Here we've got a big title, a bolded title. Here we've got really tiny writing, but we have a picture. So giving them that release and providing a platform that they can go in and do something just like we did with you guys today. It's not always easy, and it doesn't always work the first time. So sometimes as teachers, we get frustrated with the way it doesn't work, and we kind of let that go, where if we would hang with it just a little bit, we would get most of the kids, if not all of them, on board. So I want to encourage you. This was just one of the things that they did. You could see these kids got a little crazy adding pictures. We probably have some copy and pasting because we have percentage here. But again, those are great conversations even to have with little kids. It might be okay to copy and paste when you're in first grade. It's not okay when you're in fifth grade. And so looking at that and having those conversations with kids just prepares them for the future in a better way. You can see all the different fonts and such as we go. And then this one was just a research project that this little boy did. And look at the great work that he did. This was done in her classroom with no parental help. And so I think that's a really important thing for us to recognize. Lewis said it at the beginning and we've kind of felt it throughout, but it's really important to allow kids. This is through a whatever Google's thing is for a Word document. It's not coming to me right
Google
now.
Doc.
A Google Doc, thank you. So this is through that, so you could have multiple children. My Google just popped up on my phone. You could have multiple children working on even just a plain sheet like this, a plain Google Doc like this. So those were just some ideas that you might be able to use at some point in your classroom, especially if we go back to school and we have social distancing, or we have several days that maybe kids are working from home on some things, and how do you balance half of your class at home and half of your class in the classroom? And so these might be some tools that you could take back and implement to help with those worst case scenarios. I think we are to the point for you to share. What ideas do you have virtually or while past practicing social distancing? What are some things you've used that were successful? You guys have already shared some amazing ones. So please feel free to share as much as you would like. You're welcome to do it in chat, click on your microphone and speak whatever you would like to do. And I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see each other.
So Suzanne, Lewis made a comment in the chat box that he tells the second graders that they can copy and paste, but they have to include a link. So I love at a very early age, adding in that requirement. So that's a great example. Who else would share today? All right, Google Forms for assessments. There's some ideas coming in on the chat box.
Talk to me a little bit about that. How would you use Google Forms for assessments? Would you share how you do it? Because I feel like sometimes we see it and we're like, what? So if we give examples, then it allows people to put it in their own world.
So Lewis, if you would turn on your camera, or else maybe just the audio, whatever you're comfortable with.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I turned on the video, but my video and the audio don't work so good with my link, with my connection today. So, in Google Forms, when you set up a Google Form, there's actually an option to turn it into a quiz. And can I share my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
I think you have the capability to share. Yes.
Okay. Let me go to a Google Form real quick, and I'll show you. It's not hard to do.
So while he's pulling that up, a couple other ideas. Many of your students had access to Myon, and so they were able to read stories on their levels and take AR tests, and then a reference to working with students with disabilities, using links to cover this topic and having them draw pictures. So those are great ideas as well.
Okay, when you go to Google Forms, you have up at the top, you have the option to start a blank one, or to even just start a blank quiz.
So Lewis, we're not seeing your screen.
You're not seeing.
You'll click on the little arrow there again and see if you can share it. It's a little box with an arrow in it.
I did, and then I clicked on my Google Forms. Did it not come up?
Oh, There we
There it
go.
goes.
Looks like
It
we're
was just-
coming. There
Just
we
being
go.
slow. Okay, up at the top when you go to forms, you have start a blank one, and you actually have start a blank quiz. If you just go to blank quiz, it'll open up. It'll say blank quiz. You can give it a title. So we'll call this. We'll call this just test for simple. And you can even click here and choose a folder where to put it if you want to put it in a separate folder. Usually it just drops down into your regular folder. Give it a title. And then here you can choose multiple choice, check boxes, drop down. You can tell it to give you a short answer or a paragraph. If you choose multiple choice or check boxes, it'll actually auto grade it for you. If you choose paragraph or short answer, you're going to have to go in and read the responses and grade it for yourself. Under the settings key over here, if you click on that, it will let you collect email responses so that you know who was logged into Google when they took the quiz. I have mine set up so that they have to be a member of the school board of my county so that only students can log in. Presentation, it shows a link to another response. You can shuffle the question order, so if you want the questions to be in different orders for different students, it'll do that. Make this a quiz. If you turn on lock mode for Chromebooks, students can only answer on a Chromebook. And when that's on, only that screen will show. They can't open up another screen to go look up answers. I don't use that with my kids because if they want to go look it up, they can go look it up. I don't care. Release grade. I do mine after manual review, so they can't go back and look until I actually graded the quiz, because I usually include some short responses, and I want to be able to grade it before they go look at it. But it's relatively simple to use. I don't want to spend the time to go through a whole professional development for it unless you guys want me to do that.
Thank you so much, Lewis. I think you might be having a little lag or some connectivity because we couldn't actually see you, but I think hearing what you did and how it worked, I think that answered the question and will allow people to do some exploring if they think it'll work for them. So thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Now, where I got to unshare my screen?
The same place. If you'll click on that arrow again, it'll give you the option to unshare.
Oh, there it is.
And Delinia had put in the chat, is that how you say your name? Because we love your name, just for the record. We had a conversation about it yesterday. It's beautiful. Is that how you say it? Huh?
It's Delina.
Delina.
I love it. She said there's going to be a virtual learning for Google Forms in July. So that was one of the options that with the Tech Tuesdays. So if you're interested in that, that might be a call that you jump on, that you register for. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yes. Any other ideas that anyone would like to share? All right. Well, if you continue to think of things, or you're going to have the opportunity later on to share with us some products, and we can make those available to others. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Suzanne, if you'll just confirm that you're seeing it.
I am.
Okay, perfect. All right, so as we wrap up, we want to tell you a little bit about how this Tech Tuesday thing is going to work. And we also know that many of you are joining us again this afternoon, which we love. You will notice some of the things that will be the same, but it will be with a different text. We'll be using a poem this afternoon because many of you in this group may teach multiple levels at the elementary, under the elementary umbrella. But what we just wanted to mention today, and you were our guinea pigs because this was our first Tech Tuesday session. And so we are working out some kinks. I've noticed a couple of emails come through where people couldn't get on. So we do have the recording that we will send you later. But on the first email that went out that you were probably forwarded from your district person, We are not going to do follow-up for every single session. We are asking that if you would like to receive points this summer for these sessions, we're asking that you attend at least 3. And if you remember, there were many, many different options that you could choose from. And I'm thinking that most of you have already signed up for your 3. So you have to attend at least 3, and we're going to ask, we're trying to make this as easy as possible. We do want this to be something that you put in place in your classroom. So we're just going to ask that you create a product from at least one of the sessions. So it may not be today's session. It may be the Google session that you attend in July. It doesn't matter which one you choose to create a product from. When we finish our text, I hope that I can get my words back later today. When we complete this whole round of Tech Tuesdays, what we're going to do is we will send out a Google form where you will confirm the 3 sessions that you attended, and you will submit some follow-up. That product, as I said, can come from any of the 3 sessions that you attended, and we're going to give you a little bit of time because we know that schools will come back in some form or fashion in August, and so we were going to give you all of August and September to complete your follow-up. So if you decide that you would like to choose this session, and remember you have access to this slide presentation, you are going to make a copy before you make any changes, don't forget that piece, but your options for today and the lesson that we took you through, you could use this lesson plan and you could figure out a way that you are going to do virtual grouping with your students, and you could just share with us how you're going to go about that. You could also select another text. Maybe you want to do another picture book and you want to come up with a significant sentence and some text-dependent response cards so that your students are going from that recall to that knowledge utilization. Or you might want to create another lesson similar to this one with another text that you choose. And those are not written in stone. If you have another idea, all you have to do is shoot it to us, and we are pretty flexible about that. But we wanted to go ahead and mention this early on so that you can start to think about as you attend 3 sessions. You certainly don't have to, but just know that if you want the points, you're going to need to attend at least 3. Are there any questions about that as we wrap up?
Rhonda, there is a question in chat about, and I can't get to it for some reason.
Okay, I see it.
Okay.
So a couple of questions. Are we allowed to add more classes or change if we choose to do so? Are we locked into certain classes? Amanda, that'll be something that we'll need to look into. We can certainly do that manually if you will let us know. But we'll kind of explore that idea. I'm going to write that down, Suzanne. I'm not really sure how that would work, but we're going to write that down if you wanted to add some more. And then what if I attend more than 3? Will I have to do multiple products? So that's one thing we've talked about. If you would like to attend all of them, yes, you would probably have to do multiple products to get more points there. And I'm going to write that down as well so we can have a follow-up discussion as a team. How many points? What we talked about is if you attend 3 2-hour sessions, so that's 6, and then you submitted 1 product, we're looking at about 8 points. Is what we had talked about as a team for the 3. But if you attended all of them, we'll have to sit down and talk about that. But you're certainly welcome to. We would love for you to join us every Tuesday. Any other questions? All right, well, Suzanne and I are going to hang out for about the next 8 minutes. So if you have any other questions or you would like to share or do some problem solving, we'll stay on Teams for a few minutes. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see your lovely faces. And if not, thank you for joining us. Some of you will see again at 1 for a different lesson. Hope you have a great day.
Bye, guys. It was awesome. Thanks for being here.
So, Suzanne, this is Carrie. I think it might just be because of this type of computer I'm using because I always have trouble with it. So for the next one, I'm just going to try using my Mac that I got from Putnam County and see if that helps.
Well, and I wanted to ask you too, were you trying to type on the screen that I was sharing, or did you pull up the Google slide in a different or a side-by-side screen? Or in a
I
different
was going to, but I pulled it up side by side and I just didn't have a chance. So that would that have been part of it?
That's it, I think.
Okay.
You can't type on the one that I'm sharing, but you should be able to pull up your own. So you'll have it before. Are you doing the 1 o'clock one also? Is that what you just said?
I wasn't planning to now, but I'm doing one next week.
Oh, okay. So before you get on next time, maybe go ahead and pull up the Google Doc
Okay.
before the session and see if that works.
All right, I will try that. I will
See if you can get into, could you get into the Google folder?
I didn't check.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll play around. And see.
Okay, if not, send me an email. Do you have a pen handy? And I'll give you my email address.
Yeah.
All right, it's becks
Uh-huh.
at nefec.org.
Okay, well, let's see that.
Yeah,
All
not
right.
too hard. So send
Okay.
me an email, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, have a super day, Carrie.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye. Rhonda, you made me laugh. We knew that was going to be a messy part. And that was, one of those things, thinking through how you would do it differently with children. It is a little different picture.
So I wrote a question in the chat box about, I work with kids with profound needs. They can't even write or read at a high school level. And I thought I would take this thinking I could use it for my students. So as far as the product goes, I'm going to have to switch it up for them. Here, I'll put my
Absolutely.
camera on so you can see my face. So I was just wondering, I'm still half asleep. So I mean, the video and I did a Bitmoji this summer for myself, and I've been on so many webinars. But when you're talking kids that can't even use a computer very well, all of this is like way above their ability. So most of what I did was videos and send the video clips through to the kids for the parents to use with the students. So this will work effectively for the kids to get to the text. But as far as having to pull out words and being able to respond maybe I could have them respond to questions by teaching them how to draw pictures as opposed to, I'm kind of lost.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And you have to meet the needs of your children. I think just the question would be, how can you challenge them each day? And maybe it's them creating a video. Yeah. Can they speak? Most of your students?
Some of them don't. Some of them are non-communicative.
Okay.
The core board.